Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. It's a great turnout this evening. It's good to see everyone here. Welcome to the 13th of our 17 visioning sessions that are being held throughout the county. We're happy to be here in Crofton this evening, and we're glad that you chose to join us. My name is Phil Hager, and I have the honor of serving as your Planning and Zoning Officer. And like you, I'm very happy to be here tonight and to be part of all this process. These sessions are extremely important to us because it gives us an opportunity to take your pulse and to gather more information about what's important to you, about what's going on in your area, and how we can help you to address the concerns that you have and most importantly, your vision for what you think the future should be for this particular area. I'd like to begin with a couple of thank yous and some introductions. The guys who work very hard, who don't actually get any acknowledgement, but make things work, like the fact that you can hear me tonight. Our sound people and our folks from the Office of Central Facilities, Ray Pringle and Zach Reed. Mark Haygood has run video for us this evening. Thank you for that. All of our sessions are recorded, and all of them are made available to you. You'll actually be able to access these online. You also see that we take your comments very seriously. We have people taking notes, staff people, and Patrick will be here manning the laptop this evening. He actually will be recording your comments, and you'll be able to see them on the board here behind you as you offer those comments. So this is important, and we want you to understand that we believe that it's important as well. We have a number of guests with us this evening. I'm going to be introducing those, but first I want to take a moment and talk about our county exec who's with us this evening. It's a challenging job to work in the field of planning because it's all about balancing resources. You have essentially unlimited demand but limited supply. I think our council members can relate to that very well. I think they've spent a lot of time in the last couple of weeks with that very task and trying to figure out ways to make everything work out in the balance. And it's a tough job because at the end, no one's completely happy. So that's kind of some of the things that make our job fun. It's been a pleasure these past months since November to work for a county executive who understands planning, and he understands the idea of having to try to balance all these competing needs, and to work with the thing that really defies description and analysis, and that is the people themselves. Because you're dealing with people who are humans and they have thoughts and ideas, and it's not something that you can always neatly quantify and place in a box or check off on a map, because it's people's emotions, it's people's thoughts, it's their homes, it's their businesses, and the places where they grew up or where they want to retire and things like that. And people feel very strongly about those things, and so when you color a map a particular color as part of an exercise, it looks very simple and very easy, but it has an impact on people's lives, and people react sometimes strongly in those ways, and that's part of the fun of our job. But the person who also understands that is our new county executive. I guess I can still call you new, but he has really supported and been a real advocate for us, and he went to bat for us in this budget season, recognizing all the things that we are trying to do and the vision that he has for our future, and knows that it's very important to put resources in an area like planning that we're going to be working on in the future. So we're very happy about that. We're also very happy with the way the council has treated our resources as well, and they've actually saw fit to add some things to our resource box for the future, and we're very pleased about that as well. So our county executive has supported us. He's asked us to have these extra meetings, and he has been to many of them. He seems to be on the road every night doing something. I think most of you have had an opportunity to see him in action. And it's my pleasure at this time to recognize our county executive, Mr. Stuart Pittman.
Poor Phil. There's a lot of these meetings, and he's working very, 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 very hard. And the whole staff at Planning and Zoning has been really stepping up because they thought they had already done all the community engagement process for this, and I came in and got elected and said, let's start all over and let's have 17 meetings around the county. And that's a heavy lift. It really is. And I also was very interested in the small area plans, as many of you are, have been going through them. They're old, but they're still relevant, and I'm really glad to see that the recommendations from those plans are on the wall with status updates so that people can look at those. I know it's not easy to go around and read things on the wall, but you can do that online, so I hope you'll do that online too. And I want to recognize that, well, Jessica Hare, your county council representative, is here, and I hope that she'll have a few words to say. Behind her, Mike Malone, who's your delegate, District 43. Andrew's still here? There you are. You're sitting
With
there.
the people.
Right. Andrew Pruski, who's our county council chair, District 4, who's part of Crofton, just a part of Crofton. And I really want to thank Andrew for the work that he's done with the county council. He's the only one there who's been there before. He's the rest are all new. So he's playing a really important leadership role in the county council. And I think that the administration and the council have been working well together. We've certainly been spending a lot of time with each other and getting to know one another. And I think this budget process is almost done. And I think compared to most years, the fireworks have been pretty limited. So this process with the general development plan obviously is the most important thing that I'm doing in my administration, I think, because we're talking about what this county is going to look like for the next 20 years. So I'm taking it very seriously, but it's not everything. So you may have read in the papers about some of the things that we've been doing in our first 6 months, particularly on development and environmental issues. And I want to run through a few of those. We hired an environmental policy director, Matt Johnston, who's shaking things up all over the county and giving us very good ideas for legislation and policy. One of the things that he suggested, and we did, and I think Phil had already started to do, is on modifications. Some of you in the room know a lot about modifications. I think I first learned a lot about modifications when I went to the first meeting about the enclave at Crofton, when the engineer was pretty confident about the project going through because it just needed a few modifications, and that was all. And found out that modifications aren't always as easy to get as they used to be. And I have to credit the previous county executive with listening to Phil when he came in and saying, we're giving out too many modifications, especially on environmental aspects of projects, and said that we're going to cut them in half. We're going to do 50% less modifications. And you've probably exceeded that goal, but it was a bit of a difficult issue for the developers who. I'm not necessarily their favorite guy at this point, but I do sympathize with their need as business people to have some certainty so that when you get into a project, you know whether you're going to be able to complete it and what it's going to cost and what the rules are going to be. And they said, well, which 50%? So Matt suggested, and we announced just a few weeks ago, that any modification that has to do with the environment is going to be very difficult to get from here on out, and that especially includes specimen trees, steep slopes, and wetlands. And in the case of wetlands, there have been a lot of projects that have gone in where they did not identify the wetlands because nobody was checking on them, and so now you have to get those verified through MDE, and we're finding out that there were wetlands in places that nobody told us. So that's progress there. We're looking at legislation independent of the GDP process on forest conservation. I talked a lot about that in the campaign, and we're working on a bill right now that we hope to have introduced this summer that will make it tougher for developers to take down trees, more expensive to take down trees, to drive them into areas that need redevelopment, which is really more of our goal on the development side. And then when we relaunched this process and created a citizens advisory committee that had representatives from each of the small areas. We had a meeting, and some of you were probably there. We gave 2 weeks' notice, and I thought nobody was going to show up because it was an all-day Saturday thing to start the process and talk about growth, smart growth and planning. And 250 people showed up, even though we said we were only going to have room for 200. And they sat there all day Saturday, and the morning was ex-Governor Glendenning, who started Smart Growth America, and his staff came in, and they talked about how we can preserve open space in the county, protect our environment, reduce traffic on the roads by focusing development in areas where there's doing transit-oriented development, and even some multifamily, which is something that, in this county, the previous county executive was opposed to. And I think that in order to be able to grow in some areas, people want to live where they could work, walk, ride a bike, and go out and have a beer at the end of the day, all in one area. And in some cases, that means these town centers and multifamily. So we're hoping that with the zoning, there'll be some flexibility for that kind of stuff, so that that's where the development happens. But for you all who live in Crofton, I understand that it's grown in a way that has been not planned, and the traffic on Route 3 is pretty much unbearable at this point. The school capacity issues are worse than anywhere else in the county. When they built Two Rivers, they said it was going to be age restricted, but lo and behold, they removed the age restriction, and now we've got to build new schools for all of those kids, and that's a frustrating thing. And then when the development next door doesn't manage their stormwater and it ends up in your basement, that's a frustrating thing too. So we are going to be introducing a bill so that when the developers do their stormwater, they're liable for it actually working for the next few years. Right now, they can do the stormwater, and as long as they comply with the regulations, even if it doesn't work, they can walk away, and they're no longer liable. So that'll change as well. But we are willing to take on development interests where we have to, not just for the fun of it, but to actually implement a vision that you all have. So what I'm hoping is that I'm going to stick around and listen to what you say. Elizabeth Rosberg is you're going to be moderating, right? She's been doing these at all these, and I have to give her a huge amount of credit, mainly because she's not getting paid to do it. And she's at all of these. She's the volunteer representative to the CAC, who's also the chair of the CAC, and you're the chair of the Arnold Preservation Council? Yeah, the mover and shaker of the Arnold Preservation Council. So she's fought a lot of battles on development and environmental issues, and it's great to have her managing this process. So with that, I guess I'm turning it over to who? To you. Okay. The Bix.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. On that topic.
Oh, I forgot one thing. James Kitchen. Constituent service.
So that saves me from one introduction, James.
There you go.
And we're going to save time because of that too, right? Okay. Other representatives of the Citizens Advisory Committee, in addition to Elizabeth, is Pat Hooker and Melanie Hartwig Davis. Thank you both. These people are giving up a large chunk of their lives, basically, in order to participate in this process, and we owe them a great deal of gratitude, and we appreciate that they're doing that. It's a very, very important thing. And Pat, you've been out at just about every one of these meetings that we've been having around the county. So if I forget my lines, I can look to you and you can tell me what to say. So that's great. That's great. A couple other introductions. Some of the staff who are with us this evening from the Office of Planning and Zoning, who helped to make these events possible: Cindy Carrier, Patrick Hughes, Don Ziegler, Gene Tinsley, Michael Day, Jane Cox, and Eric Hovland. Did I miss anyone? Thank you all very much. If you could help me recognize. We are honored this evening to have with us Councilwoman Hare, your representative to our county council, and she has agreed to provide you with some words of encouragement this evening. Jessica.
But after 5 weeks of budget hearings, I feel like I have the easy job here tonight because I just get to listen. This is great. I'm so excited to be here. I'm honored to be here. I have a big thank you to Planning and Zoning. 6 new council members. This is our first GDP. Actually, I guess Chairman Pruski is your first GDP as well. Planning and Zoning has already spent a number of hours briefing us on kind of the position from our side and how it all works and things like that so that we're going into it. So thank you to everyone at Planning and Zoning for all of your hard work. This is incredible. It's number 13 for you, but this is the first one in District 7, so this is the first time I see this presentation. You are in great hands with Planning and Zoning. You're in great hands with the county executive who understands what you all would like to see and is listening with all ears. So that's really all I have. Thank you so much, and thanks for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you, Jessica. Also with Jessica is her legislative assistant, Matt Pipkin. And Mr. Pruski, did you wish to address us this evening?
Briefly. You told me 2 hours, Phil. Is that okay? First of all, thank you to everyone for coming this evening. I just want to let you know there's a couple issues that have been brewing. Besides the GDP, the landfill operations, as you know, I've been a strong opponent of that. Make sure you send in your comments, but also the traffic. I'm looking at some possible legislation, particularly in the Route 3 corridor, to try to address some of the issues. I mean, the reality is for years it has not been addressed, and we have to really work with our state officials and others to address it. I mean, the development, we can certainly manage it, but the traffic's already here. So that's something that I hope that you consider and speak about tonight. What is it that we could do to address what we have? And in addition, I'd ask particularly for the Crofton area, we are building the high school, but we still have challenges in terms of redistricting and other things that many of you know, and we're working towards that. I just have to compliment the county executive for bringing in a fresh vision. We've had some struggles for years of trying to plan and get everything, but this is an opportunity for the community to actually have a voice. I mean, doesn't everybody, we should clap to that, don't you think? Yeah. I think that's a great idea. Let's hear directly from the residents and see what they have to say. And also, if you have things, the one thing I also want to mention before we leave, we also have a challenge. Fort Meade is in my district, but a lot of you either work there or know people that work there, and they're bringing in 10,000 more people. Wow. So we have a challenge to find, spots and areas, but I think what the county executive mentioned is that let's be thoughtful. Let's think about smart growth in areas near transit-oriented development. Near the MARC station, let's stop the sprawl. Think about, development that actually makes sense, transit and other things, and this is an opportunity for you to kind of share that vision because we do have that challenge. And I know I tell people, they say, just stop the development. Well, when you have active duty military folks who are being sent here, and families that go to Four Seasons, Crofton, other things, we have to work with them. And so that's something that we have to come together in a combined vision, but you all have an opportunity to come up with thoughts and ideas to make it work. But thank you again for being here. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say, and we're going to go to work for you. You know that. We're here to make sure that your voice is heard. Thanks so much.
So the format that we're going to follow for the rest of this evening is the same format that we've been following at all of the other meetings that have been held throughout the county. And it consists of tonight's format consisted of the open house with the maps, your opportunity to provide a comment on the unrealized implementation mechanisms of the small area plans, and opportunities to ask questions of staff. Tonight, at this particular point, what we want to do is to hear from you. This is a verbal format opportunity. It's going to be a facilitated discussion that Elizabeth Rossborg is going to preside over. She's going to help get your thoughts and ideas expressed in a managed and non-confrontational way. And for those of you who arrived without enough time to fully do everything that's available here in our open house. Everything here is available also online, so if you missed an opportunity to provide feedback, or if you want to put your vote in twice, you can go online. No, you can go online and do that. So again, it's critically important that we hear from you, and we're investing time to hear what you have to say. I know that many people have things on their minds and things that cause them to be here this evening, because it's much more difficult to come out to something like this than it is just to stay home. And so there's obviously things on your mind, and we're interested in hearing that. I'd also encourage you to not just to see this as an opportunity to vent, but you have our full attention and our focus. What is it that you want us to walk away from here, and what ideas do you have to remedy some of the things that you think need to be changed for the future? Without further ado, Elizabeth Rossborg.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Rossborg. As I said, I happen to be a military spouse of 34 years and moved 18 times in those 34 years. So I can tell you a little bit about different places around the world. I am not from Crofton. I need to give a disclaimer right now. So I will listen and learn as much as I can, but I don't particularly live in this area. As Mr. Hager alluded to, we are all volunteers. We'll be doing this for the next year. This will not be your last opportunity to tell us what you think. You will have an opportunity. There'll be different forms coming up. They will also have an opportunity to see the draft form and give feedbacks on that. So don't think that this is the end just tonight. You can go online, as they said. Everything is online at www.aacounty.org. Under Planning and Zoning, it drops down, it says Plan 2040. You click there and everything is there. The videotape, you are being taped. We did say that, but I'll say that once again. Then the tape will be posted online, as well as all those that are in the past and in the future. You also have an opportunity to email me directly if you would like to at plan2040@aacounty.org. And I promise I will respond to each and every email. So thank you all for coming this evening. This really is important, and we're glad that you've chosen to be part of the process. That's why we're here. So tell me, and I will try and make it all the way around the room so that everybody has an opportunity to speak. Why did you choose to live in Crofton? What brought you here? And why are you here today?
Hi, my name is Mary Leach. I'm with Country View Estates. I've been here 12 years. And the reason I moved across Crofton is because at that time it seemed like country. And it's changed dramatically in the past 12 years.
Well, thank you for coming. We appreciate you being here this evening too. What else? Why did you come? Why have you chosen to live in this area? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Susan Tobin. I'm with Crofton First. I moved here in 2012 for the schools, and I work in DC, so it seemed like a reasonable commute.
Excuse me. Sorry. Thank you. Reaching across to you. Sorry. Okay. Come on. I'm not going to help. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Gail. My family moved here in 1986. We decided we had a choice of Virginia and Maryland. Virginia was overcrowded and a miserable place to live. So we heard about Crofton, we studied it. It was walkable, it was green, it was close to the jobs, and we loved it. Emphasis on loved.
Thank you. Who else either was born here, had family here, and decided to stay here? There you go.
Okay, my name's Katie Dentler, Katie Kelly Dentler. My family was one of the first 50 families to move to Crofton back in 1964-5. I married my husband, a Navy guy. We moved all around. We ended up in Monterey, California, where everybody said, oh, move to Crofton, move to Crofton. And my husband said, we're not moving to Crofton because my parents still lived here. But anyway, we got orders to the Naval Academy and we moved here and bought a house in Crofton in the split warehouse I didn't want to have. We compromised. And that was 1987. And our daughter lives here.
Oh, wow, thank
Yeah.
you. 3 generations, thank you, thank you.
For you, Gail.
Yes, sir.
We moved to Crofton in 1972. And the reason we moved here, as a planner, I read a lot about the community and Urban Land Institute as one of the best planned communities in the state of Maryland. It had all the amenities, and Mr. Crawford did a wonderful job planning it. The only problem is he didn't control what happened around Crofton over the years, and that deteriorated the quality of life in Crofton. But when Crofton was first established, it was written about by all the planning magazines as one of the best planned communities in the area.
Thank you, sir. Learn something every time I do this, so thank you. Anybody else? I'm always beating down the bushes. Okay, thank you. We've learned a little bit about this, but I will let you all be able to say more. What has changed in the last 15 years? One person at a time, 2-minute limit, and you can only say the same subject once.
Okay, I moved here in 1982, and when Crofton was pretty much surrounded by cornfields, and it still was country in 1982, and what has happened is rampant overdevelopment. It now takes like 2 hours to get back from Baltimore, where I just stopped volunteering because it now takes 2 hours. It used to take, in 2007, it took less than an hour, now it takes 2 hours.
So
mostly because of Route 3.
Yeah. Okay, overdevelopment. Oh my goodness. Okay. So with that overdevelopment comes
Traffic.
traffic.
Crime.
Okay. Traffic?
Crime with all the new businesses that we have. Our CVS has been robbed 5 times. Something we probably like.
Crime, traffic,
Overcrowded schools.
overcrowded schools. I'm repeating because it is on tape. So overcrowded schools, crime, traffic, overdevelopment.
Lack of green space. I moved here in 2002, and I could go the back way into Annapolis in 450, which actually did not flood and didn't flood as significantly until they put in Copper Ridge. I mean, it was not that great at various times, but it was not a problem. You could go out Davidsonville, and I could see the horses, and I could do all sorts of nice things. And there were fields. And now we just sit on Route 3.
Yeah.
Open space. So, what else? Yes, ma'am?
I was just gonna add to the thought of having less trees, which there's a lot of. I've been here since 2004. There's a lot more noise because the trees are a natural barrier for that, and with the new shopping centers and in Crofton Meadows, I never used to hear the racetrack. I know those of you in the Triangle always have, but over in the Meadows, we never heard the racetrack until the Welch Chapel South was built and all those trees were taken down.
Thank you. Come on, I know you have more. What else has changed?
My name's Bob Bender. I live here, so my house backs up to Route 3, and I hear the truck noise all night long as they slow down for the lights, pull away from the lights. I noticed on the board here, there was a mention of a bridge to get across, which I'm not sure who's gonna use that, but I know further up, I feel bad for the people that live in those townhouses and work at Welch Chapel because they take their life in their hands crossing the street to get to work. A lot of those people seem to walk.
What about the bike trails? Good bike trails? What bike trails? Okay, what else?
One thing that I've noticed in my time here is lack of mom and pop stores. Like anything that comes in has to be a chain because the investment in property is so expensive that your local mom and pop can't sustain their business.
One thing I wanted to let you all know about, we had talked about traffic, and you talked about Route 3. There is a transportational functional master plan. It is available online, and it is by district, and it tells you what the county's plan is for traffic and transportation in the future. So I highly recommend that you go online, www.aacounty.org. You go under the departments, it'll say transportation, and it is the first tab. It's called Move and Arundel. And you are able to comment until the end of the month, until June 30th. So please take a look at that. There's a lot of that in there that has to deal with federal, state, county plans. And I highly encourage you to look at what is being proposed for your area. Yes, ma'am?
Can I just comment on that in particular, what you just talked about with the website?
Yes.
You said go on the transportation website.
Is-
So I'm at this meeting, but there's many people from Crofton who talk a lot on social media about the problems. How are you all getting the information out that people should go to these websites to comment on them? I'm not getting any emails from the county. I'm not getting any mailers from the county. I don't sit on Facebook all day. If I'm working, I'm not sitting on Facebook. I'm not looking for the information. How are you pushing this out, county executive, to communicate to your people to get online and be active and find the information about transportation? We want to hear from you versus you people coming here, but you're not sending mailers to us. You're not communicating to us to let us know to go on the site and provide feedback. Unless you're at this meeting, if you can't get to the meeting, how are you communicating with people to get online and do these things and provide your voice and to do this?
So
Because I'm not seeing anything. And
right. No, so I do send some of those emails. You should get my card before you leave, because I can absolutely get you on a list. But in this area, I communicate with a lot of the community organizations, civic associations, and just people who want to. And so, I know I've sent that one out at least once, right?
I get information about this meeting from this gentleman sitting here at the end, right there, about 2 hours ago.
Okay.
That's how I found out about it.
Okay.
I should have found out about it a different way.
And I think the overall point is that it shouldn't be selective
And so-
communication channels. It should be broad-based, zip code-based, whatever.
Right.
To get the word
Mailers,
out so that
emails.
everybody can consume at the same time and react.
And we'll be more than happy to get that to you. I know that there were regional transportation meetings held just like this in all the different districts. Those have been held. And so,
How is everyone hearing about it? There's so many people commenting on this Nextdoor app, which I'm sure some of you are on. And I think to myself, you can comment all you want on social media, but unless someone like the county executive hears it,
well, I think
or
there's
you're
two
actually going
avenues
online
to,
provide your feedback, it doesn't matter.
right, there's two avenues to do that. One is through the constituent services and the other is through your council representative. And they both
Something
have.
needs to be pushed to the people. It's definitely not being pushed. Just an observation.
If I can add to that, I know about this meeting only because I'm a member of League of Women Voters and I was asked whether I was going to come. But I then looked on the county website trying to find this, information about it for sure, because I wanted to do my homework. And it wasn't even, I didn't see anything on the county website about tonight. And there was no, I read Bay Weekly, I look at this, I look at the Capital newspaper, I didn't see anything about tonight.
I didn't mean for the whole thing to get off subject, but
No,
but I think it's important.
but it
for
is
you to
important,
understand.
and you can sign up to receive those
But you have to
emails
sign
directly.
up. You need to know.
It's an option, yes ma'am, it is an option, but the information was provided through a variety of avenues. And I'm sorry that you didn't get it, and so your constituent services can help with
Yeah,
that
I
too.
just want to add that anybody who signed in tonight and provided an email, they will be on a list, so any future meetings that we have regarding the general development plan you'll be notified. Or
So you don't have to sign up,
or any
you just
activities
did.
or anything.
You did when you walked in,
It's gonna be
so that is good, so. Okay, so anything else about what has changed? Yes, ma'am.
I know about this because I work with people who are blind and crossing streets, et cetera. And I've put together a study guide for teaching these street crossings. And I found out that we're kind of unique in that it's a complicated issue, but the traffic signals are actuated, meaning that if you don't have a pedestrian button to extend the time long enough for a pedestrian to get across, you're kind of screwed. And I have a video on my website showing me trying to get across the street when there's no way to get enough time. One of those that are actuated and are not provided is the one that you get from the junior high school over to the community. That signal is not actuated. They have extended the timing so that if you're on the right side of the street and go with the right car, you will have time. Anyway, it's a complicated thing, but I'm hoping that our state and county will, when they have an actuated signal, provide the pedestrian facilities to be able to get across the street.
We appreciate that, and I'm sure that we can learn more about that and pass it on to the people who take care of that. Yes, ma'am.
Unlike some of you who've been around forever, I moved here in 2016, and two things I've noticed. One, there seems to be a preponderancy toward what I call mega gas station, oil farms. I don't even know how they stay in business, but they seem to take up a lot of real estate. And they generally are in areas that don't have easy access or egress.
Right.
They just, and they're right across the street. There's a Wawa and a Royal Farms on each side.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've noticed since I've been here is an increase in age-restricted communities, Two Rivers notwithstanding. But that suggests that the population, the demographics of the population have different needs than those who have school children. And I understand that developers often choose that path because they don't have to pay impact fees for schools, sidewalks, and those kinds of things. And I think that that should change because it suggests that those of us who are 55 plus don't need sidewalks. And I just don't, we don't need safe passage from one side of the street to the other. And so I'm not clear on the taxing authority and how that could be altered, but I think that it should be.
Thank you.
Thank you. What else has changed? Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
That big park that was behind Historic Linthicum Walks, now that we have our school. So I'd like to see as much green open space as humanly possible. And I don't mean, I'm in charge of Linthicum Walks. We have property. We have a lot of it that is overgrown. We're owned by the county. I'd like the county to come in and help take care of that property that's within our 6 acres. People like Historic Linthicum Walks. We use it. It's available for the public to come in and enjoy it, which is why we want to maintain it. And we need to maintain as many open spaces like that as we can, that the community can foster and enjoy.
Sounds like a good community work day.
Yes.
Lots of community volunteers.
Not too much poison ivy.
Either poison ivy or kudzu.
Yeah.
I know, exactly. What needs improvement?
So I'm just gonna bounce off what Katie just said. We're losing green space hand over fist to development, and then when the county looks at the active green space, at least for Crofton, they count golf courses as green space, and that's private property. So the public is just losing out to any opportunity to walk their dog or have a picnic or just be outside, and nature's just kind of falling by the wayside.
public open space, public recreation access.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make you walk all the way from the room and all the way back.
It's good for me.
I think there needs to be more community resources. So if you go to Suburban Park, love to throw that out there, you will see a lovely Suburban Park Community Center. If you go to Pasadena, they have a wonderful Y, massive with a restaurant inside. If you go to Arnold, they have a wonderful Y. If you go to West County or Crofton, where would you find a community center? Nowhere. Everywhere in the county is a beautiful community center, but there's nothing in West County. They need one.
I appreciate Ys are public, are privately owned, and I can tell you from going to other places that everybody would love to have community center and senior centers, and there's been a suggestion to join them. Have the seniors be there with the kids and help them, and have the kids be there with the seniors to help them. So there is a need, not just here.
I think with the amount of traffic that we have on Route 3 right now, they need to reduce the speed limit from 424 to Rydell Road, from 50 to 35, if they could. I know there's a lot of traffic, but it's just, people drive 70 miles an hour. You gotta be 50-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Reducing the speed on 424 was this,
No,
or Route 3, sorry. Sorry, between 424 and Rydell Road, this one.
We lived in a very historical area. Lincoln Walks, great example. If you read the history of Maryland, Johns Hopkins House, right now, that's in danger because we can't, private people are not willing to support it. And it would be a shame if the county were to lose a historic property like that for more development. I think that's gotta be a priority. I think we gotta preserve our history. I know we have all these other problems, but if we don't preserve our history, we're not gonna have anything.
Thank you, good point. Yes, sir.
These comments of what we need remind me of going to school board budget meetings years ago. And there was never somebody in the audience that said, we need less of something. They always said they wanted more. But nobody ever spoke about how it's going to be paid for. And I only raise the issue because the county executive, I believe, has proposed some tax increases. And I'm happy to pay taxes. This is not an anti-tax comment. But I heard a lot of comments in the neighborhood from friends and neighbors that, man, they're aghast that the county executive would dare suggest an increase in taxes. So the point of my comment is that for all these, for this wish list, perhaps maybe somebody wants to talk about, okay, how are you going to pay for it?
Cost association, yep. There are costs associated to these, that's for sure. So, yes, ma'am.
I don't think there's a cost associated with this, but the speed limit on 424 has to be reduced. It goes from 35 to 45. The trucks are careening where that light is, right here at Arundel. I can hear the screeching tires from my... Well, no, what, 424 is a state road.
Correct.
But we've got nursing homes, schools, libraries, communities split by 424, which is Crofton's Main Street, my friends, and kids having to cross the street from one side to see their friends on the other. It's just dangerous. The high school is going to only exacerbate what is already a bad problem. Thank you.
What was the question again?
What needs improvement?
What needs improvement? Oh.
So I ride my bike around the community and I noticed this crosswalk at Rydell and Aberdeen, and also the crosswalk at 424 and Rydell at this corner. When I push the button, it's still the people turning left out of Aberdeen to get onto Rydell. They still have the green arrow, even when it's telling me I can cross. And I've seen multiple comments on Nextdoor blog, and people were saying that they almost got hit several times. And some people just go around it to avoid it. And it's like, it's a crosswalk for a reason.
That's an easy one. We can work on that. What else needs improvement? Yes, sir.
I think the intersection with Staples Corner, this is a disaster that's developing.
No, I was just gonna stay away from traffic for a hot minute. Again, I think that there's a lost opportunity because we have lots of retail, commercial rooftops, and I think that because we don't necessarily have to pay for this, but a tax incentive could be, and I'm not opposed to increased taxes. I mean, I don't have children in any of these schools, but my tax dollars go to support them, and I'm a child of public education and military schools, so I understand that. But all of that roof space could be used for solar energy.
Yeah.
And again, it's a way to require input from developers. If you want to build here, this is what you have to do. And so I think that there are missed opportunities to be creative. That new Highs down the street, the Mega Royal Farms gas station, whatever they're called these days. There's a 7-Eleven. There's a lot of rooftop space that could be used, and the community would benefit from that energy, which could reduce our overall costs, which means that money, instead of going to utilities, could go to stormwater management, environmental cleanup.
Good suggestion. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just have one question. I mean, how much of this is the responsibility of the state? Because it's not just a county issue. Some of this stuff really requires a much broader perspective and, I think, authority to deal with. So, I think it's great that this is occurring, but some of this is really a state issue that they got to step into it too.
Very true. Very true. And your state representative is here.
You went to the, you went over to Kiwanis Club for that.
Okay,
I'm here for Delegate Pena Melnick, representing Piney Orchard and Log Chapel.
There you go.
I'll take it back to her.
So, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming. We appreciate that. And we are working, the county is working with the state because they're in the process of doing their master plan right now too. And so we are talking, and we're talking with the city, so you know that. We are coordinating with the city of Annapolis as well. So we're trying to get everybody to have a seat at the same table. So, what would you like your community to look like in 20 years? Think big, different, out of the box.
I'm going to go look back about 30 years when Katie and I moved here. And at that point, we had a meeting, not very much unlike this one. And the county people and the state people came and said, Route 3 is going to be a disaster. And at that point I said, why don't you take that open space, the landfills, the area out behind the shopping center across from Crofton, all the way behind the Watch Apple, and build a limited access highway all the way up to 97. And they said, oh, you could never do that. But I think that would solve a lot of our problems and bring that area across from Route 3 into our community.
Thank you. I wish I did, but I don't know exactly this. So, what else? Come on, think big. How would you solve the traffic problem?
The one thing I've noticed about the way that Crofton's developed, which is I think part of the issue with their traffic issue, is that all the residential is very concentrated in one area, and a lot of the commercial and retail is in another, and a lot of it you have to access. Basically, you have to get to Route 3 to access. So even if your grocery store is less than a quarter of a mile from your house, you still basically, because of the fear of or having to get to or access Route 3, you have to still get in your car, which is putting more cars on the road, as opposed to having ways to access some of those facilities that you don't have to necessarily get in the car. The second thing is, we have the Odin Sound Center, or the Odin Mark Station, I know Crofton kind of built as a bedroom community for a lot of folks, both commuting to Baltimore and DC. But again, that's a thing where there isn't a lot of transit or things even locally where it gets us access to theirs using as a hub where people are still being forced to get in a car to get even to the places to get to where they need to commute. So we need something better to try to maybe get more, if we really want to reduce traffic and get people out of cars, looking at that as well, so.
And even then, I know people that don't drive to that MARC station because the parking lot's so huge that it doesn't make any sense to park and take the train. You might as well just sit in the car and drive to Baltimore at that point. So, yeah, our transportation as it is isn't well utilized.
Good point. We need safe parking rides, convenient, cost-effective. What other traffic suggestions?
I'd say we actually build the parking garage at the Arundel MARC station, number one, so we can fit more cars, because if you get them off of 95 and everything else, number two, we do need to think about localized bus service. We have community centers, we have parking lots that are empty, and even some of these shopping centers, so if the buses came through there, and then you're going to get groceries on the way home, we gotta think smarter, people. The other thing is that, as a former federal government employee, they pay you to take transit. So why are we collecting those fees, for the parking or whatever else? We just need to think outside the box. So the vision should be, think long-term ahead and local bus service. You go to Howard County, you can get on Wi-Fi, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy your day, and it's actually a service that works. So we do have to think about that, because it's not necessarily taking all the cars off the road, it's limiting, making people think that it's okay to to carpool together, and look at some of these things, that are there. So we just got to think long term.
Probably some intermodal transportation too, so that, like you said, was that when you get there, you have a way to, who have their arm out?
Sorry, sorry.
I just want to really add to that. I mean, we've been here 35 years and raising kids. It's so difficult. They can't do anywhere. They can't go anywhere. You have to drive them everywhere because of such limited public transportation. It's really a big mistake.
So hopping on that as well, it's wonderful that we have the high school coming in, but now both Crofton and Arundel middle schools need improvements, and we also need a West County elementary, and I know all of our officials here know that, but I think it's worth putting on the record.
Thank you. Everybody here knows that, but not everybody else knows that, so we appreciate that, because we do need to know that, and I didn't know that, so that's good.
20 years from now, there'll probably be less private ownership of vehicles. There'll be more robotic transportation and more telecommunication. And people won't be traveling to work like they used to, and cars will be so expensive that most people won't be able to afford them.
I'm trying to put that on tape there. So, you're right, we think big. I think, less cars for sure. So, anything else anybody wants to get on the record?
So I'm currently a high school student, I'm 18, and I actually found out that in Howard County, the library system has lots of funding for tech classes, and tech is the future. So I noticed that like Arundel County doesn't have near the amount of stuff at the public library system that Howard County does. I took a Cisco cybersecurity class, and it was free. And they have 3D printing and a ton of stuff for youth and adults that's tech, and that's where some funding should be going, because like in Howard County there's lots of tech stuff that we should have here too. I shouldn't have to drive up to Elkridge to have a nice class like that.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you. We appreciate that. What else for the record? Anything else that you want to add? Yes, sir.
I realize that Defense Highway 450, the issue with the flooding was mentioned a little earlier. I know it lies outside of the Crofton area, but I know people in this room are affected by it. And and I guess realizing it's also a state road, I believe that it's a state issue, but I'm really interested in what the county is doing to fix that problem. And it's a poor analogy, but you know, that somebody mentioned, well, there's 5-year plans and that kind of thing. And the bad analogy is if a bridge collapses, they don't put it on a 5-year plan, they fix it. And this is a broken road. It's not a traffic problem, it's not a planning problem, it's broken. And the question is the county doing what it needs to do to prod the state or do whatever it needs to do to make sure that it gets fixed? It's affecting kids going to Crofton, affects Crofton people going east.
Good question. Thank you. Appreciate it. Ms. Sharon.
I would just love to come to a meeting like this in 20 years and say there's no more buildings and than 2019. So just kind of would love to see that, just improvements and not more trees down and more open space lost.
This is back when we were talking about Johns Hopkins' birthplace. I read in the Capitol, now I can't remember how many millions of dollars, but it was some outrageous amount that they were going to spend to revitalize an historic building in Annapolis. And they were gonna mix eggshell mortar, you know, they were gonna do something, and they said, well, it would have just cost a few million, but we're spending, I can't remember if it was 30 or 70 million, anyway, some tremendous, outrageous amount to have this, you know, so if they can spend that much to get this fancy mortar, maybe they could throw a little bit at Johns Hopkins' birthplace. And I know that Johns Hopkins University should ante up something, but.
Yeah, but, you know, that's, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's time I introduce myself. I'm Bob Brown, I'm the executive director of the Hopkins Birthplace, White's Hall. And, thank you. And we're hoping to have good news for everyone in a few months in terms of acquiring the property. If people don't know, we're leasing, our nonprofit, our 501c3 nonprofit is leasing the property at the moment. But we think we're gonna have good news in the next few months. By hook or by crook, we'll be acquiring it. That's sort of phase one. Phase two will be to get our hands on some of that money that was being referred to and restore the place. We have some other ideas of how to make it, I think, as amenable as possible to the community. Our goal is to, you know, it's always been a private home, and our goal is to have it be just a wonderful place for the community to use. And we have a lot of other, I won't go into the exact plans, but we have plans for that. If people, have people been there? How many people have been there?
Oh, yeah.
To the beer gardens?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So one last thing, our beer gardens last summer were a wonderful thing. I think they were a fundraiser primarily. They were also a way to get folks up close to the house and see what we were doing and take an interest. And we're working towards getting those up and going again, hopefully in a few weeks.
Great, great. Well, thank you. As I said, this is not your last opportunity to talk to us. We appreciate everybody coming out this evening, excuse me, and we look forward to having you come again, and our county executive is going to close the evening.
Yeah, I just can't resist responding to some of the stuff that's been said. It's a couple of them were questions anyway, and I think you wanted me to, so put me on the spot. But on community engagement and making sure people know about stuff like this, obviously it's expensive to do mailers and takes a lot of trees to put flyers in every door. But when we set up the community, what was the Constituent Services Office, we changed the name to Community Engagement and Constituent Service. Hopefully it'll be more of the former than the latter. And we've asked James and the rest of the staff in all of their districts to work with the existing organizations on the ground, particularly to try to engage people so that they show up at stuff. And so I would really encourage you to get involved with the Crofton Civic Association, Crofton First, whatever organization. That's I think why you actually have a lot more people here than some of the other neighborhoods, because you folks are better organized than most. So I congratulate you for that. But it's not to pass the buck, but it's partly your all's job to organize each other and get engaged. But we have to do a better job. We're always trying to figure out how to get lists, how to get people's emails, how to get their contact information so that we can get the word out, because we need that. There hasn't been much talk about the enclave, so I just got to say something about it. You probably know that the planning department has sent back their applications over and over again, and this last time with some pretty tough language about, this is a terrible application, you didn't do your job well. I actually think it's a terrible project, and I'm not afraid to say it, and to say that we as the county want to do everything that we can legally do to try to keep it from happening, because I don't think it's good for the county. However, the developers got money in it, and they're going to keep pushing, and we're concerned about them coming back with something that's scaled back where they don't need modifications. We're open to talk about even using some county money to do something there. The problem is that it's right on Route 3 and wants to have a park next to Route 3, and the number of uses for that land, there aren't many good uses for that land. That land should clearly just be kept green the way it is. And how much public money we can put into that is a big question. I have a feeling that the developer wishes they'd never gotten involved, thanks to you guys, and is looking for a way out. So hopefully we can help them figure out a way out. But that's where that stands for now. West County has been it has been represented well, but the representation of West County hasn't necessarily had a lot of influence down on the 4th floor of the Arundel Center with the county executives, and you will notice that there are a lot more parks and public amenities on the other side of the county, and that's changed obviously with having Andrew Prusky as the chair of the council. He's in the budget process. He was the one of the 7 of you. Jessica's going to figure out how the system works. She's been asking for stuff too, but Andrew has been asking for a lot and pushing it. And I'm very sympathetic to it because you can just look around and see that we need more in West County, and we need to invest more of our rec and parks money in West County, and hopefully that's gonna show up in the next few years. Hopkins House, James has been really on top of that one. James is sort of a bulldog when it comes to winning, and whatever the issue is, whether it's the landfill up here or Hopkins House is another that he's really trying to help make things happen. So we want to help make it happen. I mean, we do not want that land to be developed. We want to preserve that place, and the fact that the community is involved in the beer gardens and keep doing the events so that you keep people involved, and let's try to make that happen and save it. Taxes, I didn't talk about the budget, but I'll just say that the budget that is likely to be approved Friday morning is what we did is we knew from the campaign that, and from the past history of the county, that we hadn't kept up with growth and development. We were going to have to do more on education, more on public safety, fire and police, and Steve Shue and I both were saying that we needed to invest in that, and I think everybody on the council knows that, particularly on public safety, we need to catch up. In fact, we've even budgeted in the past for police officers and not been able to hire them. I think in planning and in some of the environmental, more inspectors did inspections and permits on the environment. So we put all that in the budget. We were able to do, and an infrastructure fund that we're creating that's gonna make it possible to build some of the schools we need to build and do more, I hope, on public transit, something that's a high priority for me, buses, and hopefully electric buses that are so damn cool that people are gonna actually wanna ride them. But all of that costs money. But what we were able to do is put together a budget that keeps us in the bottom quarter of tax rates for both the income tax and the property tax side, bottom quarter of counties in the state. So the only counties that tax lower than us, they're about 4 lower on the property tax side, 4 lower on the income tax side. They're all rural counties. Among developed counties, the big 8, we have much lower rates still. So we didn't have to go as high as some people thought we would. I think we'll all survive. I hope we'll all survive. And make sure that you take advantage of, on the property tax side, all the exemptions that you can, the homestead credit exemption and all of that. So, and then Route 3 and 450. Okay, so we met with Pete Ron, the state highways guy, He was crying poor. They have, the revenues have not been increasing, partly because fuel economy and the vehicles has been getting better and they get their money out of gas tax. So everything we talked about with money, he just was trying to keep our hopes from getting too high. Our letter that goes in every year, the top priorities are Route 3 and Ritchie Highway. What we figured out is we have to dangle money in front of them to get them to do anything, and so we're going to have to put, even though it's state highway money, to get them to do anything. And we're talking about, not necessarily adding whole new lanes, but even doing the study and figuring out where the turn lanes should be to increase the traffic flow. I mean, we got a huge problem here in that we're trying to create a commercial district and a highway at the same time, and the two don't work very well together. But it's top of the list for state money to do. And then for 450, we did it in a whole separate category of being an emergency. And I think that what we have to do there for the flooding is to just get louder and louder and louder and louder to the point where they just can't ignore it. They have agreed to put in $1 million to do some short-term stuff, but to really raise the road and completely solve the problem is more like 12 to 15 million. And squeezing that kind of money out of them is a challenge. So, but we have to characterize that as a public safety issue and an emergency, and we have to keep doing that. So yeah, that's about it. And except on the public transit, I just want to say that we do have this transit plan, Move in Arundel. It'll be part of the GDP. I think it's a good plan. It's got basic, the priorities are good. It's bike trails, it's sidewalks and walkability in communities. It's dealing with the bottlenecks that we have on the roads, and it's public transportation, and there are regional groups that are working on transit. I really think that I've talked to a lot of people about electric buses, smaller buses in some cases that are electric, and I think part of the problem is that, big diesel buses aren't that sexy and people just think, I don't want to ride the bus. But if we have them in the right places and enough of them and we invest up front and they're cool, that we can get the ridership to the point where we can increase public transit in the county. So just couldn't walk away without saying all that. Stay in touch with James, stay in touch with Jessica. She's a great representative. She's not in the same political party as me, but she does come and she asks for stuff, and she's smart. She's a lawyer and an engineer, and comes up with really good ideas. Good at saving money. We'll teach her how to spend money. and really thoughtful. So thanks for coming out.